What happens when America's closest allies start looking beyond U.S. defense suppliers? For decades, the United States dominated the Western defense market, providing everything from fighter jets to military helicopters. But shifting geopolitical priorities, growing demands for domestic manufacturing, and new industrial strategies are beginning to reshape that landscape. Your roadmap to the latest in auto? Welcome to Highway Herald. Today, major decisions in Canada and Europe are challenging long-standing assumptions and signaling that a new era of defense and industrial competition may already be underway. Number 5. Airbus makes a bold move into Canada's helicopter future. One of the most significant shifts in North America's defense industry involves Airbus helicopters and its growing ambitions in Canada. While U.S. companies like Boeing, Sikorsky, and Bell have historically dominated Canada's helicopter fleet, Airbus is positioning itself as more than just another supplier. The company has proposed expanding manufacturing, research, and technology development in Canada, potentially producing helicopters for both domestic use and global export markets. Airbus argues that future defense contracts should deliver long-term benefits such as skilled jobs, technology transfer, engineering expertise, and industrial growth. With military aircraft serving customers in around 170 countries, Airbus believes Canada could eventually become a major aerospace manufacturing hub, much like Spain did after transforming from an importer into one of Airbus's key production centers. But Airbus isn't the only company benefiting from changing priorities. Across the Western Alliance, governments are increasingly widening their search for defense partners. Number 4, Canada and Europe expand beyond traditional defense sources. The Airbus story is part of a broader transformation reshaping defense procurement across the Western Alliance. For decades, NATO nations relied heavily on a small group of suppliers, particularly American companies. Today, governments are increasingly prioritizing diversification, domestic industrial growth, and strategic independence. Companies such as Saab, South Korea's defense manufacturers, Turkish drone producers, and major European firms are gaining momentum in global markets. A notable example is Canada's decision to acquire Saab's Global Eye surveillance aircraft, which uses Bombardier's Canadian-built Global 6500 platform, supporting domestic industry while strengthening ties with Sweden. Modern procurement decisions now extend beyond military performance, incorporating technology transfer, manufacturing opportunities, workforce development, and long-term partnerships. As Canada deepens cooperation with Europe and Nordic allies, defense contracts are increasingly being awarded based on broader economic and strategic value. And that raises an even bigger question. Why is Canada changing the way it evaluates defense contracts in the first place? Number 3. Canada's new playbook for defense spending. The Airbus and Saab developments reflect a much larger shift in Canada's defense procurement strategy. For decades, Canadian military spending largely flowed to U.S. defense contractors due to geography, NORAD cooperation, and deep industrial ties. Today, however, Canada is evaluating contracts based on more than military performance and cost. Policymakers increasingly prioritize domestic manufacturing, technology transfer, workforce development, industrial participation, and long-term economic benefits. Similar to how governments encourage automakers to build local factories and supply chains, defense procurement is becoming a tool for economic growth. The key question has shifted from what equipment a company can provide to what lasting value it can create for Canada. As a result, defense firms are offering local production, maintenance facilities, and technology sharing agreements to strengthen their competitiveness in future contracts. And those changing priorities are attracting enormous amounts of money, investment, and global competition. Number 2, the $500 billion defense opportunity. Canada's defense transformation is attracting global attention due to the sheer scale of investment opportunities now emerging. Under the country's defense industrial strategy, approximately $180 billion in defense procurement and another $290 billion in defense-related capital investments are expected over the next decade, creating nearly $470 billion in potential economic activity. industry leaders, investors, and government officials gathered at CANSEC 2026 to compete for future contracts and partnerships, highlighting Canada's growing importance in the global defense sector. The government is also supporting growth through a $4 billion investment platform aimed at financing defense-related businesses. Meanwhile, Canadian startups specializing in artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, Arctic communications, surveillance technologies, and quantum computing are positioning themselves for future opportunities. Much like the race for EV batteries and semiconductor plants, defense investment is becoming a competition for innovation, talent, and industrial leadership. Before we reveal the biggest takeaway from all of these developments, we'd appreciate it if you could subscribe to Highway Herald. Your support helps us continue bringing you in-depth coverage of the industries shaping the future of transportation, manufacturing, and technology. Now let's look at the larger shift driving all of these changes. Because the real story isn't just about helicopters, surveillance aircraft, or defense budgets. It's about a fundamental change in how nations think about economic and industrial security. Number 1, a new era for allied defense purchasing. These developments are about far more than individual defense contracts. They reflect a broader transformation affecting defense, automotive manufacturing, aerospace, semiconductors, and energy infrastructure. Governments are increasingly prioritizing supply chain resilience, domestic production, industrial independence, workforce development, and long-term economic security. Traditional procurement models, which often favored established suppliers and long-standing alliances, are now being challenged. Countries want greater control over technology, stronger local manufacturing capabilities, and less dependence on any single provider. Canada's evolving defense strategy is a clear example of this shift. Military purchases are increasingly viewed as investments in innovation, job creation, industrial growth, and national resilience, rather than simply acquiring equipment. As a result, future success may depend not only on advanced technology, but also on the ability to deliver lasting economic and industrial value. And that brings us to the broader conclusion that extends far beyond defense procurement alone. Verdict: the race for industrial leadership is accelerating. What we're witnessing across Canada, Europe, and the broader defense sector looks increasingly like a major industrial realignment. What started as military procurement discussions is rapidly evolving into a competition centered on manufacturing strength, technological leadership, supply chain resilience, skilled jobs, and economic influence. Airbus's ambitions in Canada, Saab's growing role, and Canada's expanding partnerships with Europe all highlight a common theme. Governments want more than equipment. They want factories, technology transfer, domestic expertise, and stronger industrial ecosystems that can create value for decades. For automotive enthusiasts, the similarities are striking. The same forces reshaping defense manufacturing are transforming vehicle production, battery supply chains, semiconductor investments, and industrial policy throughout the Western world. The biggest question is no longer who can sell the most hardware. It's who can create the greatest long-term value for the nations making those investments. And based on the developments we've seen through 2026, that race appears to be accelerating faster than many expected. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Do you think Canada is making the right move by prioritizing domestic manufacturing and technology transfer in defense contracts? Could the same industrial strategy strengthen North America's automotive industry and supply chains? Which company do you believe is best positioned to benefit from these changing procurement priorities over the next decade? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your perspective helps make Highway Herald a community where enthusiasts can discuss the industries shaping our future. If you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to Highway Herald and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next vehicle update, industry analysis, and emerging automotive trends. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's more exciting and informative content waiting for you.